footage of Daigo actually angry. Justin's turtle style. Overcome Rao. Now on the verge of putting Daigo down 1-0.
The fighting game has been a pioneer for in-person gaming. Street Fighter in 1991 was the first video game to have two players intersecting at one time. This simple innovation of a multi-userness birthed a community of new players for this new type of game, which started in Japan but quickly spread to America. 33 years have passed since Street Fighter 2, and the sands of time have warped reality into being proficient with the internet. And with it, communities of even the most niche of subjects can be created. Thus, the fighting game community and other esports communities have blossomed like cactus flowers in the desert of Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Detroit, and in...
Look yonder. The fifth night, we floated past St. Louis. What a wonderful square of lights. They say there's 20 or 30,000 people living in St. Louis. I never believed it till now. It all looked like the whole world, you know.
So the in-person fighting game community of St. Louis is pretty big for a non-coastal, non-major city. Its discords and Reddits are pretty tight-knit, but they're very vibrant, and in my own experience, I recently went to a local fighting tournament, and the other players were surprised but eager to welcome me into the ranks. The players suggested other events I could go to, and even gave me the names of other high-level players playing my character. But how important really are these places people can go to in St. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, with this building being a free, open, public attraction, and one of the largest ones in the city, if not the largest one in the city, there's a lot of exposure to different families and people who are not a part of the esports community at the first hand of it to actually get welcomed on board just by going out on a random weekend or weekday with your friends and family. Just having the building itself as a venue is really amazing for esports, just because the exposure to people who are, one, either looking for a way to get involved in esports, or two, who know nothing about esports. Either end of the spectrum, they can still come in, ask questions, learn about different competitions and venues and things like that from us, as well as us to host our own events and tournaments like that to help grow and strengthen the community that's already there.
But how does one attract players into fighting game venues, you may ask? Well...
Did you know that?
Mark Rosewater, the creator of Magic the Gathering, said that players can be categorized into three types: Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. Timmy likes to see cool things and derives their enjoyment from the game through being a part of cool moments like an actor. Johnny wants to win their own way, engage with the game, and invent. And Spike, most evil and cunning player, just wants to win.
Now you know.
For fighting games and other esports, of the three types of gamers, the biggest group of players are not the typical more experienced Johnny or Spike. In fact, video games are so hard for modern audiences to comprehend that it is difficult for players to engage with systems as a Johnny, and it is impossible to have a rational chance of victory as a Spike. Thus, for any local esport scene to thrive, the venue and community must first please the Timmy with food options and friends, and let the video game itself do the heavy lifting for the more niche Johnnies and Timmys. In this way, if the malls and the recreational areas of St. Louis are not up to par with the in-person Timmy, then they will find more enjoyment with the online playing of the game instead. So how are conditions in St. Louis like? Well, unlike other major cities, St. Louis has less foot traffic and relies more heavily on cars, so already it isn't great. But then in 2020 you add in the pandemic, and the local scene starts majorly suffering. All these isolating factors act like Timmy repellent and drives away potential community members. But even though I said before that Timmys were the most important type of player for growth, retention and loyalty is something much more pronounced in the Johnnies and Spikes, who are the types to like the game so much and value esports as something irreplaceable to them. Thus, they are more likely to retreat to online forums and discords where the social and communal aspects are lessened. In contrast, Timmys are more likely to give up and look for some other form of recreation and weekend activity. So now the esports community of St. Louis is a bunch of dedicated, experienced, highly skilled players who have stuck it out through the pandemic. But where in this new era is welcome for them to go? If only there was somewhere that could bridge the gap between players and act as a venue for so all players could live in harmony.
So at the Science Center, we focused a lot on the educational aspect at first. We were wondering what are the raw stats and data of people actually playing games and actually interacting with technology at first, is what the general idea of it was. And we found out on average, the average adult is spending upwards of over 11 hours a day looking at a screen, whether it be their phone or a computer for work or anything else like an iPad playing games, or if you're just playing on a TV, things like that. And we really wanted to look into, one, the health aspects of that, and two, how it actually has affected us over time and over history as well. So what we did first was we actually opened up the game exploration exhibit, which is on the first floor of the Science Center. And it's all about the different generations of technology and how we actually got from what it looks like to have the old original Nintendo consoles to how they look and how they've developed over time. Furthermore, how they've actually developed us as a society, going back to that original stat number of people using technology. I mean, that's just for the adults. The kids that I know are on the lesser side of it, it's 6 hours, 6.5 hours a day, but it's still developmentally impacting every level of every generation, of all of us, whether no matter your age, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, whether you're actually in the workplace, force and things like that. And then now we developed our own esports program because people were trying to find out, well, how can we bring everybody together with something that has become such an amazing industry and a growing industry at that as well. And esports was just an amazing foundation that we actually conclusion we came to, to not only bring together different levels of competition, but also different levels of people who wanted to come together with their family, with their friends, and things like that as well.
Cool. So the Science Center has taken upon themselves to bridge the gap between the casual and everyday person, and educate them enough to become interested in video games so they can become a Spike or a Johnny, or at the very least a Timmy. UMSL, Webster, Missouri S&T, WashU, Science Center, all see promise in gaming and in this community, and spend time and money to use venues and run events. It's safe to say with all these new chances that the St. Louis esports community isn't going anywhere soon, and evidence might be pointing to a resurgence in arcades even. Right now in Japan, arcades are reopening after the pandemic and are attracting players. Just like how fighting games first moved from Japan to America, the same is very likely to happen with this new boost of arcades. Imagine the once scattered and doomed esports gamers come out of the desert of the pandemic and move back into the arcades. With the help of these colleges and universities, it isn't that unlikely, especially if the community is still growing. Now this theory doesn't translate so well to St. Louis, but if esports has a popularity boom at all in the States, then they will eventually come to St. Louis. Little by little, St. Louis Discords are accepting members, and it's only a matter of time before people know about this fantastic thing that can positively impact them. And just imagine being able to ride your bike or walk to the nearest arcade where you can play your favorite game and be around like-minded people. I've been really into video games ever since I started playing them with my family together in our living room. But as I've gotten older, it's been made apparent to me that the majority of video games are only being played online. So when I first heard about esports, specifically the fighting game community, it seemed fake. It blew my mind that you didn't need friends or some prerequisite. If you had your preferred controller, then you could just go and play. And under the rules of the world and the game, you could socialize and partake in something that was so much more fantastical and epic than merely playing a sport. St. Louis's esport community may not get as much attention as other cities. Part of that is because fueling a community around such an abstract concept of interactable moving lights is absurd. But there's a reason it hasn't died out yet. There's a reason it has attracted college funding in areas like the Science Center. And there's a reason it will keep growing.